Welcome to the Mindcraft Podcast. My name is Kimberly Quinn, and I am here with the wonderful, the amazing Michelle Ogston. And Michelle and I have to tell you, became super fast friends at one of our mastermind conventions for the Rising Tide Connection. And especially, we've met each other at least a couple times. This last one, Michelle had me just stop in my tracks with a couple things she said. But for now, I want to say to Michelle, thank you for using your life minutes in this way to be on our show.
Life minutes. I haven't heard that. That's a great introduction. I'm happy to spend my life minutes with you, Kim, right here, right now with you. And all your listeners. Thank you for
100%.
having me.
Well, yeah, and I'm also pleased. Well, there's nothing more valuable than our life minutes, right? So, to me, that's a huge. There is no bigger compliment than when somebody chooses to spend time with me versus doing something else. There's no bigger compliment than that, right?
Totally. I am such a quality time girl. Like I will take a quality time moment with somebody versus a gift, like a physical gift
Oh yeah,
any day.
oh yeah.
My kids are like, "What can I get you for Mother's Day?" And I was like, "Just spend time with me. I don't need a thing. Just spend time with me." I love
Life
that.
minutes, life minutes.
Life minutes. Give me some life minutes. I'm gonna
Life
start saying that.
minutes because they are, they're not, endless. So it's a pretty big compliment. So Michelle and I were talking off the record, and of course I think it was the Orlando one. And before that, it was where were we? Utah or somewhere? I don't know. It doesn't
We were in
matter.
Sacramento, I think.
Sacramento, someplace. Um, but the Orlando one, you had me sort of spellbound with the actions bring answers, just dropping wisdom bombs all over the place. So why don't you start us out with that?
Yeah, that is one of my like classic sayings because I think a lot of the time, I'm very much in the spiritual community. So I'm, what I call myself a soul coach. I am a medium and I am a relationship coach and all of the things. Um, but really what I find is that we can either get really stuck in mindset or we can get stuck in like the awareness and the woo and let's just be in the flow, which believe me, girl, I am in the flow all the time. And what happens is we then don't take the action and we just sit and we're like, well, why don't we have any answers? What's happening? Why isn't this moving forward? Because we're just like in the awareness. I think it's the new
Right.
drug of the spiritual community, by the way. That's kind of controversial, but we can get to that later, Kim. But I do find that when you take action, you get so many answers. And so many people are so afraid to take action. I know I was afraid to take action at certain things in my life. But then once you do, no matter what happens, you have an answer like, oh, I need to tweak this, or that was amazing. If I wanted to make it more spectacular, what would I do? I mean, it just gives you so much room to play around. And I think that to me is so valuable.
That's
Would you agree?
amazing. Actually, Michelle, I'm realizing I don't think that has ever happened to me, which is such a compliment that you and I were so um, kind of just in this authentic vibe just going on just now because I forgot to say what you. So I'm glad you said Michelle's a soul coach. It fits with what you're saying because what you're saying to me right now jives with what you do, right? Which is connecting people through, to their own inner healing through their intuition, right? So
Yeah,
that kind of
absolutely.
fits with the actions bring answers.
Yes, because I think I mean, I don't think, I know that we all have our inner knowing. I think we all have our own inner voice. I think, even though I'm a medium and I've studied for 30 years plus on developing my gift, I do not think that I'm more special than anybody else. I just think that just like working out, I've gone to the like intuition gym every day, right? Like I've done a lot of
Love that. I'm gonna try to
I've
write
done a
that
lot
one
of
down.
done a lot of intuition push-ups. So, that gift is really fine-tuned, but I really think that everyone can be their own best psychic, their own best intuition leader. And I think that is sometimes where we get hung up in society. I had a mentor once tell me, and I think this was brilliant. Her name's Andy Love. She told me that certainty looks for proof. So if I'm certain on something, I have proof of it. Like I've had enough
Right.
repetitions, I've had enough data, but knowing is just having faith. and that there's the difference. Knowing doesn't have certainty, whereas certainty looks for proof. And I think when we know our inner knowing, that's when like the deep healing takes place. We trust ourselves, we love ourselves. And
I love this.
what's better than that other than life minutes?
I love this. I love this, Michelle, because I'm sure you and I probably listen to a lot of similar podcasts, but Wayne Dyer, a lot of the big
Oh,
spiritual. I love it. I love how, because I talk a lot about thoughts becoming beliefs. So thoughts, like when thoughts grow up, they turn into beliefs. When they're all grown up, the beliefs, and then next is knowing. So to believe something, I'm sure you can elaborate better than I can on this one. To believe something is a really good start,
yeah,
but that knowing's a whole nother level, right?
I would totally agree with you. Knowing takes a lot of inner work, to be completely honest. Like, I don't want to scare anybody, but I mean, knowing, you got to get through a lot of shadow work to really know. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we got a lot of ego and shadow that comes
Oh,
in to,
totally.
want to block us. And I mean, let's be honest, that's the ego's job, is to protect us. And so
Hmm.
it comes up to say, hey, whoa, I have evidence that this is not going to go well. Let's pause this conversation. And then having a knowing of like, it's okay. Even if it didn't work out, or even if this exact same thing happened, I'm going to be okay. And like having a knowing around that, to me, that is like personal power at its highest. That there's something magical in that.
I love how you
Nobody
said
can take
that.
that from you.
I love how you said that. So you're talking about also sort of. I'm hearing kind of like some vibration kind of lingo here too, right?
Yeah, I mean, vibration can be like kind of controversial. Some people totally believe in it and some people don't. So, whichever you subscribe to, really, this is a lot about. I'm going to go off on a tangent here, Kim. So bring me back if we need to.
Take your
Okay.
time.
But we're talking about knowing, right?
Hmm.
And we're talking about manifestation. So you were talking about like beliefs. I'm talking about knowing. And you're like, beliefs are kind of like the baby of
Hmm.
knowing, and before it's going to turn into something, right?
Right.
Which then gets us to like the bigger picture, which is like all about manifestation and the vibration that you're putting out. And I do not think like people are vibrational matches for trauma or horrible things to happen. I do,
Totally.
right? I mean, that is not the kind of vibration we're talking about.
Right. Right.
I
Right.
do believe that frequencies match each other. And so, in a sense, there's like, let's just say you're looking for a life partner, right? You want to have a relationship. When your vibration is really low, you tend to devalue yourself. You tend to settle for less. We tend to look for things, overlook things, or fall in love with potential. And we tend to not raise our vibration to then match somebody at the highest level of frequency that we can be. And so when we're at our highest levels, we attract certain people. It's why you and I are sitting together right now. We
100%.
are we are at a high vibrational match. And so your energy attracts mine, my energy attracts yours, and we're like, "Ooh, let's have a conversation."
Right. Right on.
Right? I mean, that's what I think. So I think when we talk about vibration and what we're looking for and what we're matching, and maybe it's not love, maybe it's the right career or wealth. Money's a big one. We could do a whole vibrational thing on money. Um, how that changes when we find out, again, I'm going back to the shadow for just a second, but where our
Mhm.
shadow plays in all of those areas. So in
Mhm.
our love life, in our work, in our feelings around money, our capacity to hold money, wealth. I don't know. I feel like your audience wants to talk about money for some reason. So let's go.
Then go run with it.
I'm
Because
like, dude,
honestly, I think I don't know. I don't want to get you off track because I think you're spot on. I think a lot of people don't realize how much their relationship with money is a reflection of their relationship with themselves.
oh, 1,000%. I could not agree with you more.
Right.
Yes. Your money and yourself, they are married. They they are married. And I didn't know that either until I was in the coaching space and I could only make a certain amount. Like I couldn't get past a
Right. Right.
certain
Right.
amount
Right.
because
Right.
I felt safe. I was like, "Oh, this is my safe pocket of money."
Mhm.
So anybody who's resonating with this, if you have a certain level of income that you can always get to, let's just say for easy math, that's like 5,000, right? You make 5,000 a month and you're like, "That's my cushion." And then you go to the next job and you make 5,000, or however you arrange it, you always tend to have the same at the end of the month. That is like your safety. And so it's learning how to increase your capacity with your safety with money if you couple it with money. I could get so deep on this, but
Go ahead.
your how you feel about money, our
Mhm.
beliefs around money get coupled together and then they get intertwined. And so we have to learn how to unseparate those things so that we can let that feeling of growth and knowing and certainty, like all of it, come forth around money. So that now it's not $5,000, but now it's 10 because I just increased my capacity. So if I take safety out of the mix and I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
money isn't just about safety. Maybe it's about freedom. Maybe it's about choice. Maybe it's about it buys me more time. Whatever it is, I've just increased
Mhm.
my capacity now to hold more money and to be with more money. And then level two is, where does that show up in my body? Because oftentimes, and you see this happen to athletes all the time, where they go from like places like, they don't have any money, they came from poorer families, and now they're in the NFL and they're making all
Right,
this
right,
money,
right,
and then they lose it because the capacity to hold the money goes. So if you
right.
find this too, where you like have months that are like 5,000, 10,000, 30,000, and then you go to 2, or you always go back down to your safety of 5, then your capacity to hold money hasn't grown with the capacity of what you actually provide.
I love that. And it's well, there's also research on it with
Yes.
lottery winners. Most, as I'm sure you know, most lottery winners, they can win like with gazillions, and then they go right back to
Yes.
the same. Usually,
Yes, and this is the whole thing is like oftentimes one, we aren't taught a lot about money or finances and whatnot. But the second part of it is really a lot of what you were saying, which is like, what is our emotional capacity with money? Like, where have we coupled things that our beliefs around money that actually aren't true? And a lot of this comes from, in all honesty, and our parents are amazing people, or however you feel, it's really not the point. The point is we're indoctrinated at very early ages of
absolutely,
money doesn't grow on trees and you have to work hard in order to make money, and not that some of that isn't true, but then our belief becomes coupled with that and we block
right,
our
right,
own
right.
progress by saying, well, I can only make money if I work hard, and my money's going to go because it only grows on trees. But if I learn how to uncouple that belief and be like, okay, well, what if? I'm always asking the question, like, what if? What if that weren't true? What if money didn't grow? What if money did grow on trees? Like, I mean, how crazy would that be? How amazing it would be if money grew on trees. Great. What does that life look like? If money grows on trees, what does that life look like? And then I start to work on becoming a vibrational match from money growing on trees.
I
I'm
love
attracting
that.
more money. This is how we like bring it all full circle. Is this is why like vibrational and energy, it all matters on some level because we tend to cap our own progress with our like beliefs around
100%.
where we should be, or what it looks like or what it feels like.
Oh, 100%. I'm so glad. I think we'll just go the money route because it really works. And I just want to, another thing too, when you were talking, Michelle, is I think of, well, there's a couple other ones that some people think rich people are jerks. And
Oh God, that's a good
just
one.
because you have money doesn't mean you're a jerk, right? And then the other thing, when you're talking about I had to put so many hours in, and of course, I have a killer work ethic. I'm sure you do too. That said, though, you can also come up with a really great idea and not. It's you're still you're working smart, not hard. It's just different. And the other thing, I don't know if you've run into this. We can have some limiting beliefs. I think are very much rooted in shame, especially if you've ever met a financial anorexic. They make money, but they won't spend it.
Yes.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
Because they're living in fear.
Yeah.
In fear. And it's also a way that somebody can rub themselves out. Like if they got some really toxic messages of you're not enough as a child, and not even being aware of it when they're 40.
Yeah.
Going down to nothing in their bank account, living in that stressful place of having no savings and things like that. And I'm not talking about people who have different things going on, but people who are just what's in their hard drive is bringing them back to that set point,
Yeah.
which I think fits with what you're saying.
Yeah, right. It's that emotional safety cap of so much of our money is rooted in our childhood that we don't even know. And I know we
Mhm.
all tend to go back to our childhood, but in reality, we actually don't usually put those two together, that that's actually where we're coming from. So like that financial anorexic, right, can also come from, well, what if it all goes away?
Right,
We didn't
right,
have
right,
any, because
right.
I've lived a life where I didn't have any and now I have it. And what if it all goes away? So now I've got to be really careful because I don't know that it will stay because I haven't had this. This also relates to your attachment style because your attachment style shows up in every relationship. And I think the biggest misconception about money is that you actually have a relationship with money. And so when I first work with people on like money or money stories is, how do you, like, if you were going to describe your relationship with money, like how would you describe it? So normally they'll be like, "Well, how do you describe it?" And I'll be like, "Oh, well, I mean, like I love money. Like I think money is so sexy. Money is so cool. Like I pretend like money's a person. Like, oh my God, money just did this for me the other day. It was so cute. Oh my God, you'll
I
never believe
like
what money did."
that.
And so when you treat money, like if you're somebody who says, because you were talking about language earlier in the beginning, which
Mm.
you and I really both agree that language is very important. So if you speak about money like, oh, I never have money. Oh, look, here it is again. It just comes and it goes. Or how do you speak about money? Because it says a lot about how you feel about money, what your
100%.
relationship is like. And so one of the first places I started working when I was working on like my money stories was that, like, when I how did I feel about money? And at the time, money kind of scared me. It was like, ooh, I don't know if I know how to work with it. I don't know. Do I invest it? Do I spend it? What do I do with it? Like, ugh. I was like super awkward around money. And so I really worked on like cultivating a really beautiful relationship just by like speaking in ways that like spoke to my heart when I was speaking about money. So I was always like cognizant of how I would talk about money with people. Now, my husband is in finance, so I definitely have somebody behind me going, really like helping me learn about money and all of that. So I got to feel confident in that. But the more like I did that work of like, oh, what is my relationship like? Like, it's private. I don't tell everybody about my money. I'm not a coach online who's like, I made X amount of money in X amount of days. That's not my style because I'm like, I think it's sacred and beautiful. And so when I started doing that, I noticed more of a flow with money instead of this like connecting where like it has to stay or I have to save it or I can only do this or
I
I'm going to
love
spend it
that.
a certain way. And it became more of a give and take relationship
Mhm,
in a
mhm.
really beautiful way instead of it just being like, well, I don't know, money kind of comes and goes. I don't know, which was kind of my philosophy beforehand.
No, I was dropping wisdom bombs all over the place, and I think that also the vibration thing is good, Michelle. Well, first of all, as a somebody who studied cognitive psychology, that I don't know how we can dispute the energy thing because it's all about the neurons. So when neurons are clustering, we are just like if anybody's ever met anybody who walks in the room, they don't even speak, and if they're kind of have a doormat thing going on, you can just feel it. Or the
Yeah.
opposite is true. Somebody, and I don't mean cockiness, I mean authentic charisma. They
Yeah.
walk in, they gotta have the room, they just kind of have the room, and people just
Yeah.
want to come up and talk. That's all that, I don't know how anybody can possibly dispute that. But the thing that when you were saying it too, I was thinking about one of the things that gets in the way, which is very energy based, which is that it kind of goes along with like you're a bad person if you make a lot of money or something. And this
Yeah.
idea that abundance has limits when it doesn't. Because people think of a pizza, like if you're at a party and there are two pizzas and everybody had one, but you want three and nobody had their second one, like you wouldn't do that. It's rude. But in the world of abundance, you making $10 million and me making $10 million takes nothing away from anyone else.
Absolutely. And like that would be like there's infinite potential in the universe. Like there's no cap in the
Right.
universe with what you can reach, what you obtain, whatever. It's all there. And somebody will claim it. So why not you?
I love that. That's very Brooke Castillo.
Is it?
Have you ever listened to her?
No.
Oh my God. Later, I'll send you the link. And she's got a lot, but there's one episode in particular. Maybe if any of our listeners want that, reach out because I can send that to you. she talks about that, that
Yeah,
it's
I mean, I am such a believer in that. Like, if you want a relationship, it is there for you. Claim it.
absolutely it's there for
Claim, like,
you.
make a declaration and be like, I want to, and it's funny because you talk about shame, but I want to be wealthy, right? And you can immediately feel shame come in on some of those things, especially around wealth, because of our beliefs, right? Of like,
Right.
well, rich people are selfish, or, they drive crazy.
Uncaring.
Yeah, they don't care about any, they're only out for themselves. And so we have these like crazy beliefs about people, and maybe some are true and maybe some aren't, but we cap ourselves. And it's like, but who else is going to claim it? How can we change the narrative? Like, if you were the rich person, how would you then change the narrative of rich
Hmm.
people? So if I had a limiting belief around people who had wealth, I
Right.
could change the narrative around wealth by being the person who doesn't have that. So I could be the wealthy
Oh, I
person who
love.
gives. I could be the wealthy person that cares.
Yeah.
So I get to change the narrative. So
Yes.
if you want something bad enough, claim it and change the narrative. You become part of the solution. Like, to me, that's like no brainer. We
It's a
can do this.
no-brainer. And it sounds like my very good friend Oprah. We've been good friends for a long time. She's just not aware of it, but we're very tight.
Yeah.
And she's done so many things, and she says this a lot, that with what you and I are saying, Michelle, about that stigma or whatever, because she says when you have, and Brooke Castillo says it too, actually, when you have all this money, you're also better able to do big things, as far as helping, like Oprah in the school for girls that she started, I forget which country in Africa, but she's done so much with scholarships and, like, you know
Yeah. I mean, it's all about your conscious contribution.
right,
Really,
right,
what are you really giving to? And I think we can take that as leaders or as just human beings in this world and say, what am I consciously giving to? So what are those things that I'm giving to? So, like, for example, just at a retreat in Maui, we give some of that money
yes,
back to the land. We give some to people that are needing money for fires or whatnot, because we're doing conscious contribution. I'm not just here to take your money and go, hey, look at that.
right,
I'm
right,
making
right.
it rain over here, Kim. And
Yeah, exactly,
I'm also
exactly.
saying, like, hey, I'm also going to do these things as well. So I think that when we question ourselves or we have these beliefs or ideas around the negative, then it's like, okay, how can I change the narrative? And I used to get really hung up on this, especially in the coaching industry, because I felt like the coaching industry has not some great people in it. And I was like ready to quit. I was like, you know what? I don't want to be a part of this. This
Right,
is,
right.
I'm done. Like, this is yucky. It's sticky. I'm not sure I want to be a part of this. And I was talking to somebody and they were like, but yeah, but what if you changed the narrative? Like, what if you were part of the solution? I was like, ooh, okay, I'm back in. I'm
It's a
back in.
wonderful challenge to rise up to.
Yeah. And I think that's true for all of us. Even in, like,
Right.
if you think about this, I know I was saying this about money, but it can also be true of relationships. If you're like, oh, no men are good, or all women are horrible, or they're just gold diggers and all men are a-holes, whatever the rhetoric is, you are actually attracting that to yourself. The more you say it,
100%.
you are attracting that to
That
yourself.
was like a pump moment right there.
Boop, boop.
100%.
So if you are wanting that, it just like the language and the feeling around money is, how do we change that feeling around and be the example and change the narrative around, yeah, but I am going to have a relationship with a man who is articulate and sweet and kind and puts me first. And no, I haven't found him yet, but when he's here, I am going to know that. That is a completely different energetic shift than all men are a-holes, because not all men are a-holes and not
No,
all men are gold diggers, and all of those negative things that we all get labeled as. And I think when we stop and we go, yeah, but what is it that I really want? What is the thing I desire? And we start cultivating our energy towards that thing by bringing it in closer, like
hmm,
start to have an intimate relationship with it. Like, that feels good. That's different.
it,
This is
it, it, it feels good, Michelle. I wonder what you think, because I feel like Jake was talking about this, but maybe I photoshopped him in our conversation. But I feel like, because there's also, because the universe or God, or however you label, however you want, source with a capital S or whatever, is responding to what we're putting out there. So if we also say it's a relationship you want, right?
hmm
If we're putting out the energy of I'm giving, not just looking for somebody to walk in the door and take. But if I'm being that person who's wonderful and loving and kind and puts the other person first, you're more apt to attract that, right? So, I mean, the role of gratitude, I think, is kind of huge. Like you can't you can't become wealthy by hating being poor because you're just attracting. I'm just saying, you can't become you can't become thin by hating being fat. You know what I mean? Like you have to go towards something with some positive energy. Like I love my body. I love myself so much that I want to feel better. I'm hearing Julie May at this minute. I love myself so much that I'm going to choose, to not put that in my body today. Or,
Right. Or I'm not going to settle for a relationship that only gives me part of a man or a woman. I'm really wanting the whole. I'm wanting the completeness of what I'm bringing towards me. And I think that's really what, I always ask, like, what are you bringing towards you? So when we were talking about language and we're saying like all men are a-holes or all,
mm-hmm.
right, we're having that conversation. Really what we're doing is we're saying, okay, I'm going to bring that towards me. This is what, if
Right,
you see a pattern in your relationships, all
right.
relationships, there's a pattern, that's a clue for you that like, ooh, there's something I'm putting out that the universe is going, oh, you want a-holes? Great. Because you keep talking about that. I'm going to give you more a-holes. You want to still be fat? Like you're complaining about your body. You like, is
Yep.
that what you like? Because the universe does not know the difference between past, present, and future. The universe is just like right here, right now.
Straight up.
So it's just
Focuses on
going,
what you're sending out, right?
yes. So it's just right here, right now. So if you're like, I hate my body, da 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 da, I'm gonna eat the pizza, whatever it is, and we all love pizza. Um,
Once in a while, yeah.
it's going to give you more pizza. So,
Right.
and then you have the effects of that. So I think, yeah, I mean, gratitude always plays a part. And I think what we're doing and like taking it up a notch is being even more specific about really like what I was saying, like being intentional with really what you want, the energy you have around the things that you're really wanting to cultivate. I mean, energy is everything, like you were saying. Somebody walks in the room, they have the it factor. You know that. Like energy is
100%.
everything.
Can't you? I mean,
Everything.
even okay, Michelle. Even because we have a wonderful golden retriever who's the sweetest thing in it. If you ever, dogs can even recognize energy.
Oh
Watch
my
a
gosh.
dog.
Yes.
Dogs can sniff fear. They can sniff when somebody's not a good person.
I love dogs. Listen, we could have a whole conversation around dogs, Kim.
No,
Um,
but I'm saying the energy
yes,
is.
totally.
Dogs are just a spirit wearing a different outfit. I mean, they
Right.
can sense it too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's palpable. And I think, we all know those people that as soon as they're in a group, it's like, wah, wah, wah. Not that they can't change their energy because energy can change and we can all work on that kind of stuff. But I mean, there's definitely people who you're like, oh, so and so is going to be at an event. Yes, I want to be there. Or so and so's teaching a class. Oh, I love that instructor. She's amazing. I totally want to hang out with her. Yes, right? Like we are drawn to people. As humans, I think that's such a huge part of our
Yeah.
existence is finding the other people in our pods that we really resonate with and connect with.
Energetic matches.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, don't you think?
Oh, I 100% agree with that. I mean, it's if you go to the neurons, it's just the facts. It's just neurons that wire together, fire together. We're kicking out stuff. Kind of like you were saying about the relationship example. I couldn't help to think, sometimes, and I'm not saying it with judgment or anything, because we all have things that lead us to that, and we're doing the best we can the whole
Mhm.
way, right? But with these, codependency kind of,
Oh,
situations, and like, how come this person keeps, and he keeps showing up? You break up with him, and there's somebody shows up wearing a different outfit, but it's not different because the energy didn't change.
oh, that was the story of my life, Kim. Let me tell you, I was the living example of that. Or this would be the scenario too, and I am sure you have listeners that would do this too. You would date a certain type of person, and then the next person would come in, and it would be like one thing would be better. And so you'd be like, oh my God, this is amazing. They're so much better than my last one because they don't do XYZ. But literally behind the curtain, like Oz back there, was
Right.
like a total. Can I swear on this podcast or
Oh,
am I a woman?
absolutely.
Oh, okay, great. Total shit show. And You couldn't see it because you were so blinded because the one thing was different. That was me. I was like, oh my gosh, they're not an alcoholic. Oh, fantastic.
It,
Oh, I was like
it,
an addict's dream because I was a codependent. I was like, oh, but you have so much potential. You're so amazing. You have such a good heart.
I
And
love the honesty. Oh my God,
oh
because
God,
it's so common and way back when, because I haven't therapized for a long time, but way back in the 90s, and I didn't get. I mostly worked with kids and teenagers. Every once in a while I get the codependent women. Again, I'm not passing judgment. Stuff happened along the way, whatever.
right.
But I just watched the cloud descend,
Oh,
and they get glazy, and he's going to counseling now. He's going to change for me. I'm going like just like I can't. I
oh
can't.
my gosh. Have you seen this show? I don't get paid for this, anybody, if you're listening. It's on Apple and oh God, it's the therapist that tells everybody exactly how he feels.
Oh my God, it's probably hysterical.
Oh, it is hilarious. What is it called? I'm gonna remember the name, and if I can't, I'll send it to you, so your listeners can have it. It is hilarious. His wife ends up passing away, and he's in this like deep depression, and so he does this. He has these moments where he's sitting with his clients, and he's like, "Just leave him. You just gotta leave him." And
Just
I think every coach, every friend who's been sitting with a person who you're like, "Why are we still having this conversation?
over and
Just
over and
leave
over
the
again.
person."
Right.
Yes, I mean, codependency is, I mean, it's a real thing. I remember my therapist telling me, um, food and people, so food and codependency were the hardest addictions to break because you were constantly faced every day with the decision.
Right.
You
It's not like
constantly,
drinking. I'm not saying it's easy for anybody who's
no,
in recovery out there. I have a ton of
no,
addiction in my family. I'm not saying that at all. But I know what you're saying is you don't have to do drugs. You don't have to drink out. It might feel like that, but you can live without it. Whereas
right.
food and people, you have to
Yeah,
learn how to manage it.
you have to learn to have a healthy relationship with
Right.
food, a healthy relationship with people,
And money, actually.
and yeah, so I mean, we all have this, and so it's such an interesting take on it of how it all kind of comes through and shows up, and codependency with money.
Oh my gosh,
The list has.
you have nailed. I'm going to say because you have nailed everything. I think a good way for us to wind up, and
Okay.
I'm hearing our friend, another mastermind friend of ours, Julie
Oh,
talks because it relates to the thread
a three
is
line, yeah.
how do you show up maybe versus how you want to show up, because those might be two different things, right? How am I showing up? Maybe the money example, that was most of the conversation. I don't know, do it, go whichever way you want.
Well, tell me what the question is again. Oh,
Okay, how do you show up?
me?
Well, I mean
Me person.
but you
Oh,
plural.
okay.
Or you can use you if you want to, because I like how you were talking about all this money stuff and all that. You were very good and consistent with acknowledging that we all have limiting beliefs, and
Right
those can
around
be
money.
like you said, relationships, money, food and fitness, that whole category of body stuff. And through all this stuff, when we're not making our best choices, they're often driven from the vault anyway, right, of the unconscious. We're not making our best choices. We're showing up in a certain way, just like when that person has one after the other, after the other, after the other of toxic partners.
Yeah.
And how maybe, and then how might that moving forward, how might that look wanting to show up versus how you are showing up versus how you might want to show up.
Yeah, this is actually, I mean, I would say this is a deeper question because I feel like we live in a society where we want to control the narrative about how
Right.
we're seen, how we're viewed, what we're thought of, and so much. And I think, there are wonderful things about social media, but I think the part about social media that really has confused so many of us is controlling the narrative. I'm only going to show up online with this filter, or I'm only going to show these aspects of my life. And I think really, as a culture, we're kind of getting bored. I think this is why TikTok is so popular right now, is because it's a little bit raw. And we're tired of just seeing the Instagram reels and the highlight ideas of people's lives. And I know for me, showing up authentically, it really is. I mean, one, it's not as easy as it sounds. Like we all want to make it sound so easy, like, oh, I'm just going to show up authentically. And the reality is it's challenging to show up as our authentic selves and be seen. And yet, Brene Brown, I have to quote her,
I
said,
love
you know,
her.
it's not about fitting in, it's about knowing that you belong.
Right.
So
They're
no
different.
matter what you look like, how you show up, polished or unpolished, because there's nothing wrong with showing up polished either, is that it's not about fitting in. Like we all belong here. We all have a space here in this world, in this culture. And sometimes we forget that. And so I think how we show up versus how we want to show up, I think that's a constant journey for all of us right now of learning. It's like a teeter totter of, I want to show up like this. And so I put a filter on and I want to show up, but I don't like, for example, even today, you and I jump on Zoom, I can put a filter on and you don't even know, but on Google, I can't. And so I was like, oh
I
crap,
forgot about that.
I was like, I don't get to put a filter on this one. All right, Kim, fine. Okay. So I
Oh,
didn't get to control that, right? So it's like there's so many things of where we think like
right,
I always think like when I'm really in that, like what is it that I'm really wanting to control and is that actually even possible?
right.
Like if I show up on a filter, are you going to like me more? I don't know. And is that the reason I want you to like me? No. So does it really matter? But I think that journey is so personal and it's got a lot of layers of it of like how we show up versus how we want to show up. Like that to me, that's a very big journey. I know like coming out of the closet as a medium was a huge journey in that of like, I want you to see me like this. I don't want you to look behind the curtain. Coming out of the woo closet kind of made it like
Right,
I
right.
am I'm here
I
in
can't,
all the glory.
Michelle, I can't, I don't want to start to get it because I brought my fast mind right to Whoopi Goldberg and Ghost. That's cracked me up. Did you see that movie?
I did,
Because
yeah.
she was like a fraud, and then and then she started to actually hear people, and they all came out of like the closets. It's so funny.
That's
Oh my god! But this
funny.
is such a good transition because I remember a retreat I was on. I think I was in college actually, but it stayed with me, and it's very Brene Brown about never negotiate yourself. I love her too. Never negotiate who you are ever. And the
Mhm.
belonging thing is that you're not making any changes. When you fit in, you're trying to change what you say or how you look or whatever. When you're belonging, not that, like you said, to be polished is fine, but we're not concerned with who likes us and we're just showing up at the table. Love me, cherish me. That's how it is. And I just forgot. Oh, the thing I was going to say, it's almost left me, is that when we are being ourselves, it doesn't take any effort. So if you're putting all this effort into being yourself, you're not being yourself. Like your real self doesn't take effort.
It really doesn't. It doesn't. And I think, that was one of the biggest things that the Rising Tides, our friend Jake Valentine taught me was that um, I felt so different in the group. I was the only, at that time, I mean, Julie was in the group, but I was like one of the out there woo people. I felt like I was very alone. And I was like, do I fit in here with all these people? Do I fit in here? And I mean, and it took me a while to be like, it's not about fitting in. It's about really owning who I am and my beliefs
Yeah,
and
yeah,
again, being in the narrative of I'm the perfect person in this exact moment to be here with you right now. Whoever is listening to us right now, we are the perfect
100%.
versions of ourselves who needs to hear whatever we're hearing and like trusting in that and knowing that. And for everybody else who's listening, like the same thing, like you are the perfect version of yourself right here, right now to go through the thing, to date the person, to do the money, whatever it is. Like you are the perfect version of yourself. There is no other version. You don't have to try to be somebody else. You are exactly who you need to be right here, right now, and that might get you to the next thing and the next thing. Or maybe you're there and you don't even know it.
And the next thing, and the thing you're in right now, like we've both done, is that may make a story for somebody else later to help them.
Totally.
So it's all part of the dominoes. The
Yes.
dots connect in the end, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's the
100%.
most beautiful part of the story is like, all the things that you go through and the things that you are and the things that you are. And then when we strip that all away, we strip all the stories away, right? All of the trauma, all of our stories, all of the things, I'm just a girl sitting here with you having a conversation about things that are cool. It's
Totally.
not about me being a coach or you being something, me being something. It's like we're just having a conversation about like this is the shit that lights us up.
No, 100%, because Wayne Dyer says it a lot with the ego. Like, if you are what you do, then when you don't, you aren't.
Yeah.
So
It's so simple.
it's so simple. It's so simple, but I think we'll just wind it up because I think really what it comes down to, it's been said 100 times, it's not a Quinn original, is people forget all the things, like the things, the circumstances, but they don't, you often remember most how you made them feel,
Yeah.
right? So hopefully our listeners, I'm sure our listeners got a ton from the amazing Michele Ogston and all this fantastic conversation. And so this is a great place to wind up. So I think I'll say thank you, Michele, once again for sharing your life minutes with all of us. And without a doubt, I know you've touched lots and lots of people because you were incredibly just authentic and relatable. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I This has been so much fun. Just riffing. I feel like I'm just hanging out with you. It's been a blast. Thank you so much.
Awesome.